Am I the asshole for offending my in-laws by deciding my daughters won't have a quinceanera and the reasons? Context. My husband, M35, and I, F34, have 2 daughters. The oldest, Lexi, 14, is not my husband's biological child, but he has been nothing short of a father to her. Our second daughter, Rosie, husband's bio, is just a baby. Last weekend we got together with hubby's family at his parents' house. Mother-in-law started talking about how we need to prepare for Lexi's quinceanera next year. Hub's family has joked multiple times about Lexi getting to have a quince now that she's an honorary Mexican through my husband. My husband's family is from Mexico. I am not of Latino origin. They grew up in the Catholic faith. I did not. While I love that hubby's family considers Lexi their own and includes her in other Mexican traditions, quinceañeras are the one exception. I have told my husband before I don't agree with what it historically represents and we aren't Catholic. My husband has also said he understands this. I tell my mother-in-law that Lexi won't be having a quince and has told me she just wants to go do something with her friends. My mother-in-law snapped at my husband in Spanish and left the room. I was then bombarded with both of my sills, one their husbands, and my mother-in-law from the other room demanding to know why Lexi couldn't have a quince. My husband told them to stand down, but for the next 20 minutes they kept making passive-aggressive comments like, "Poor Lexi won't have a quince like her little sister will." I finally said in a stern but calm tone, "I understand it's a tradition. But I do not agree with the original meaning of quinces in that now a 15-year-old is a woman and ready for marriage. I know it's modernized now and means they're just entering womanhood, but I still don't agree with the symbolism. They're kids. Besides, husband and I don't practice Catholic faith. Lexi is not having a quince and I don't want Rosie to have one either." From all directions shouts of, "What? Rosie has to have one, and Rosie is Mexican. You can decide for Lexi but not for Rosie," came from all my in-laws. All last week my husband was getting texts about how much I offended them and that a quince, more so for Rosie as his bio kid, is a rite of passage and marks a milestone into womanhood. I told my husband that if Rosie really wants one in the future I would be open to hearing her reasonings. But I won't encourage or force her to. My husband hates confrontation and told me this morning that I'm the jerk for not just giving in because disagreeing with how they feel about quinces is offensive to them. You are the asshole. I am Mexican and believe me, it does not mean any of those things anymore, and not even sure why you tied it to being Catholic. Lots of non-Catholics have them. It's just like a sweet 16, only a year early. You husband's family accepted you, accepted your daughter and made you part of the family. That doesn't happen every day. And you are repaying them with this? Yeah, totally. The info. What does your daughter want to do? ETA. Yes, Op told the mother-in-law that the daughter wants to just do something with her friends. But that could have also just been something she said to the mother-in-law as an excuse, especially since there is no mention of actually talking to Lexi. So this question is just to confirm whether or not Op actually talked to Lexi about this and if Lexi said that is what she wants. Info. Why do you keep mentioning the Catholic part? In your mind, what does that have to do with the quince? Also, do you understand that this isn't some hard-coded magical ceremony that can only have one meaning and outcome? I get why you are dead set against certain meanings, but can't you just throw those out and embrace other aspects of the tradition? I assume you have no trouble doing this with other holidays and ceremonies, like weddings. You are the asshole. Your husband's right. As a Latina, I'm offended. I assume she's not gonna have a sweet 16th, either, right? Because the historical context of the sweet 16 is the exact same, a young woman debuting in society, looking for a husband, or is it just that it's a Latino tradition, the part that bothers you? To us, a quinceañera is just a party, just like your sweet 16 party tradition. I'm nearly 50 and I want a cincuentanera, but I'm not Mexican. I just want a dress larger than my car, which I will have. I wonder if Lexi has picked up on your feelings and will regret it down the road. Who's going to pay for it? You are the asshole. Has Lexi expressly said she doesn't want a quince, or are you forcing your own opinions upon her? Would she love to have one because it would make her feel closer to her stepfather, but she doesn't ask because she's afraid of enraging you? You married a man of Mexican descent, had a baby with him knowing that quinceañeras are very important to his family, but never discussed not having a baby with him because you hate the patriarchal overtones of the quince tradition, and only brought it up now? Poor Lexi and Rosie, they apparently have a mother who doesn't want to include their opinions in their own lives. Am I the asshole for telling my stepdad's family he's not my dad and I'm not his son? My parents weren't married but both were in my life until my dad died when I, 17 male, was 10. When I was 5 my mom met my stepdad and they got married when I was 8. I have mixed feelings on my stepdad. Mostly I don't think he's a bad guy. But he annoys me when he talks like he's my dad. He always kinda did it, but after my dad died he went from doing it sometimes to all the time, where it felt like he was trying to claim he owned me or something. Even before dad died I'd say it bothered me and I didn't like him doing it. That I had a dad and he wasn't him. My mom told me I should be grateful to have two dads, and if I opened my heart I really could. So speaking up like that didn't help. My stepdad was more involved after my dad died because there was no 50% of my time with dad. There was no dad for Father's Day stuff. He would drag me to Father's Day activities with him, pick me up and put me in the car 3 years in a row. He would say I was his boy and he was a proud father to me. He'd get pissy when I corrected and said my dad was actually dead and he was just my stepdad. The just part bothered him most, but all of it bothered him. Because he wouldn't stop. I went from not disliking him but not loving him doing it to disliking him, and like I told my therapist before, I don't care if he's proud of me. I don't want or need him to be proud. He's not important enough to me for me to care. My stepdad's family are so bad at saying I'm his son and trying to say we look alike. Yesterday mom insisted I join them at his parents' house, and his parents and his sisters kept calling me his son and calling him my dad, and I got so tired of it that in front of their guests and in front of younger kids, my half-sibling and stepdad's nieces and nephews, that he's not my dad and I'm not his son. I said my dad is dad's name, and he died, but he did not abandon me or pass me off for him to claim. I told them I was a person and not a car he could claim. They were angry I rejected him so openly and that I correct them saying dad, son. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. They refused to respect your boundaries, thinking that if they repeated themselves often enough, bully you sufficiently, you will accept your stepdad as dad. How would your mom or your mom's husband like if either were to die and your half-siblings to welcome a shiny new replacement mom or dad? Good Lord. Ignore the ones calling you ungrateful. You are allowed to have boundaries and not see your stepdad as a fatherly figure. The man has been pushy for years. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You've been clear about your boundaries, and they keep pushing the dad, son narrative despite how you feel. It's understandable that after years of this, you finally had enough and spoke out. Your stepdad may mean well, but trying to replace your dad or force a relationship isn't fair to you. You're allowed to honor your real dad and not accept your stepdad as a father figure. It's your life, and you shouldn't have to keep correcting people who won't respect that. Not the asshole. Tell your mom she should have opened her heart and loved your real dad enough to stay with him, if she really thinks people are interchangeable like that. It's okay to have boundaries. Not the asshole. You are old enough to recognize who is your dad and what a dad means. Yes, stepdads play a crucial role in the upbringing of a child. Children, however, most know their spot. Your stepdad and everyone else have no right to dictate your feelings and thoughts on the matter. Am I the asshole for telling my mom I won't be giving my son her last name? Hi Reddit, I'm a 21F who's expecting my first child with my partner of almost 8 years, 20M. Our son is due in less than 2 months. For this story to make sense, it requires some backstory. My father isn't in the picture, so my immediate family is me, my mother and my twin. About 3 years ago my maternal grandmother died. I didn't have a relationship with her and neither did my mom due to them always fighting. My grandma was quite wealthy, and when she passed away she left me and my twin $500,000 total in a trust that we couldn't access until we were 25. She left my mother nothing. My mother got a lawyer and got money released early from that trust with the condition that me and my twin gave her half of our inheritance each. If we hadn't agreed to give her anything, she would have gotten nothing. Our mom then convinced us to put all the money into a trust of her own for our family exclusively for education and housing, saying it would build stability for future generations. I used this money to get a house that me and my partner currently live in. Since my mom found out I was pregnant, she's been very pushy that we use her last name, which is currently my last name. It's a traditional Scottish name with a capital letter in the middle and a lot of use of the letters M and N. I don't like this last name, it's hard to pronounce from just reading. I also fully intend to take my partner's last name in the future. 3 months ago I told her we wouldn't be using her last name and would be using just my partner's last name. This set her off, calling me petty and ungrateful. I apologized for upsetting her and asked if we could have a conversation about it so I could understand why it upset her. I expressed that I love her and I don't want her to be upset. She refused, saying it was my child and I could do what I wanted. I assumed she had come to terms with it and moved on. Fast forward to last week. I got a text from my mom saying the following: by the way, I've made changes to the trust. Her last name needs to be your child's surname if you want him to benefit from the trust. I haven't worked this hard for the future to support a partner's last name. That's just the way it is. My last name or bust. I'd rather take the lot and spend it. This upset me. I asked her to give me some time and space to think about what she's done. She then went off at me about how her hard work wouldn't be wasted, even though she herself said it would be set up for future generations like my kids. She wouldn't even have any money to blackmail me with if I hadn't agreed to give her half of my inheritance after her own mother screwed her over. I have gone no contact. But I'm starting to wonder if I'm the asshole for not just using her name to keep her happy in order to make sure my son gets access to that money. I don't want him to miss out just because his grandmother is an entitled piece of work. So Reddit, am I the asshole? Not the asshole. You are the asshole for giving her so much control over the money that didn't belong to her. Your grandmother left it to you and your twin for a reason, which I believe you are starting to see now. Now she's holding it over your head to get what she wants. You have the right to name your child whatever you and your partner wants. Sadly and unfortunately, you now have a situation that you helped create to figure out. Is your house in that trust? It might be worth contacting an inheritance lawyer and checking your rights here. Your mother manipulated you and your twin so her ass could exploit your money. If someone gave my girls an inheritance, my only response would be, thank you. Not, how can I get my hands on this? You are not an asshole, but you need to consult a lawyer. Nobody here can advise you as to your legal rights and the trust document. Your mom on the other hand is a certifiable asshole that is trying to use money to control people. If that's the sort of relationship she wants to have, it is not the sort of relationship worth having. One option. If the lawyer you need to see tells you that she can do what she wants to do, you should pretend to play ball, heck even name the baby to her liking, and a week later go in and legally change the name to your liking. You'll have a birth certificate with her name for show and tell, and the correct certificate to you and your partner's wishes. Get a lawyer and a copy of the original will. Fight her on this. This is just the dumbest fake shit out of all of the stupid fake shit that's posted here. You couldn't enter a contract to dissolve a trust like that. Your mother as executor would have been eligible to take money from the trust to pay herself for managing the money, and an argument could be made for some fees for your care, but otherwise no, this is not how it works. I'm pretty sure she'd also have had plenty of time to let her opinions be known since you've dated your boyfriend since he was 12. Please don't let her win. That money was you and your twins. She stole that money and is now waving it in your face, blackmailing you into choosing her own name. I am so sorry you had to go through this, and I hope that baby lives a great life no matter what name is given. 3. Am I the asshole for telling my grandparents they can't come to my house for a while? I, 33 male, was always reasonably close to my grandparents, but in the last year that closeness has strained and we've had some disagreements that were almost brought to my children, 7, 5 and 4, and for this reason I decided my grandparents were not welcome in my house for a while. This is something they are hurting over and they wanted to come over and talk again a week ago, but I said no. I told them that would not be a good idea and this boundary is in place for the sake of my children. Our disagreement is over their belief that I, as the oldest of my family, need to act as the great uniter of my siblings and mom. My family is split right down the middle with two who hate mom and hate our other two siblings and want nothing to do with them, and the other two siblings loving mom but hating the two siblings who hate them and wanting them to stay gone for good. While mom flip-flops. I also don't talk to my mom, but I do talk to all 4 of my siblings. The family split comes from tragedy and complexities. My dad went missing when we were kids and he has never been found. After a few years my mom felt she needed to move on and she had him declared dead and she met someone else and remarried. 2 of my siblings were furious with her for giving up on dad and always posed the question, what if he was found alive tomorrow? While the other 2 just wanted mom to be able to move on and were angry at our other siblings for thinking dad would want her to wait for him all that time. This split got worse after mom went on to have more children with her second husband. My mom and I weren't ever close. We always struggled with each other. But after she made the decision to marry again, she put so much on my shoulders when I was only 14. She expected me to embrace her husband and the changes in a way that presented us as a united family and him as basically the new dad. It was unfair and I couldn't do it. She was angry and I was angry, and when I turned 18 it was better for everyone that we stopped talking. Things cannot improve between mom and me. And for that reason alone I can't be this great uniter of the family. My grandparents disagree. They expect me to do it. And when I disagreed they tried to tell my kids all the details. This is when I put my foot down after a few attempts from my grandparents, and that's where my new boundary comes from, i.e. they're not welcome in my house. My grandparents told me I'm being unfair denying them access to my house. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Protect your children. They are too young to be dragged into this adult drama. Your grandparents are very wrong for trying to weaponize them for their use. What mom did to you was not right. You should have never been placed in that position at 14. That was never your burden to carry. Now your grandparents have decided they want to force you into the same position. It is still not your burden to carry. Your siblings are now adults and can decide what relationship they want with the family. Not the asshole, you deserve to be done with this whole awful mess. You've had to deal with this issue for way too long. Stop the cycle and focus on your kids. If your grandparents want a peace treaty, they can work on it. Sounds like they're good at guilt trips, they can lay them on your siblings. Not the asshole. Dragging kids aged 7, 5 and 4 into this is a horrible thing to do. You are protecting them and your grandparents need to learn to stop trying to force things. Not the asshole. Your grandparents are assuming, since you speak to all of the siblings, that you have some magic power to unite everyone. They're being naive as hell. I guess going NC for a while with a lot of them would be best for your own sake. Not the asshole. You've set boundaries and that's that. If your grandparents can't respect you and your family, they can't come around. Is there a reason they can't be the mediator between your siblings and mom? I wonder if this is their way of trying to get off to reconnect with their mom. Not the asshole. Gonna be honest, if I were in your shoes, I would tell grandparents that they drop this issue for good or they would not have any contact with my kids, but you seem to be a better person than I am.